Hello everybody, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to show you my favorite warm-up and drawing exercises. They are beginner friendly but by no means easy. I struggled a lot with them and I'm still trying to find new ways to improve. When I started these exercises, they didn't look very great and I just want to say that this is completely normal. Failed attempts are part of the growth, so don't be discouraged if your practice sketches doesn't match your expectations. And feel free to join me and sketch together. All you need is a pencil and a piece of paper, maybe a fountain pen if you want to. I will be using items that you probably already have at home, plus two special gadgets I'll show you a bit later. I have taken some reference photos of them on my Pinterest board. The link is down below if you want to try it out. So let's get started. The first exercise is to draw a shape behind another shape. It doesn't matter what the shape is. It can be a line, a square, or a stick, any random shape. But the rule is try not to make it look broken when you place it behind another shape. It looks really easy, but when I was a complete beginner, I kept avoiding overlapping shapes like this because I just wasn't able to draw a shape behind another shape. So after practicing this for a while, drawing things like hair strands, noodles, branches doesn't feel very intimidating anymore. I know that these sketches don't look very pretty. It's not something that could get a lot of likes on social media, but I like to think of it like this is what the dancers do in the backstage or in the studios. Because as much as I love sketchbook tours and art content on social media, I do think they have taken away some privacy and security that artists used to have. I mean, if you think about it, dancers and musicians don't need to worry about showing their every practice session with strangers online. But somehow for artists, I think we sometimes just can't help but want to make the next sketchbook tour perfect, and the pressure is just unreasonable. Especially if you started to draw as an adult like myself. So I think it's very beneficial to bring back some of that safe space where we can fail and fail again without feeling self-conscious. For the second exercise, I used this random shape generating website. The link is down below. You can also use other shape generators. I just find this one to be quite convenient. You can change how pointy the shapes are and also choose a solid shape or a line-based shape. I start by using my pencil to lightly sketch out the direction of each corner. The goal is to get the proportions and angles right. I achieved this by imagining the center of the clock and thinking about what hour it would be pointing at. I learned this trick from the book Figure Drawing by Jake Spicer. It's a really genius way to get the angles right. This skill is very important for capturing likeness, especially for portraits. I find it to be a great way to exercise my measuring muscle without triggering the self-critic or overthinking parts of my brain. Unlike drawing a face or other organic shape inaccurately, it just takes more motivation to try it again. But with these random shapes, I can just move on to the next one without any attachments, and I can easily do 10 of these as a warm-up. Now I'm moving on to the fountain pen. It's much less forgiving, so I cannot sketch out the basic shapes first. I have to draw and measure as I go. So it's like a more challenging variation. It's not going to be as accurate, but I also want to make sure that my line quality is not too hesitant. I noticed that if I go back to correct mistakes with ink, it just makes it look more obvious. I want to be able to capture the likeness, but I also want my lines to have a sense of confidence, like I meant for this to happen. So that's the goal of this variation. After I have a few shapes on the page, I move on to the next exercise, which is radiating lines from a hidden spot. This one is super helpful, not just for your line qualities, but it's also really great for learning perspective. A lot of times, the vanishing point is hidden behind some object. If we can see behind it or imagine it, it helps us to freehand windows and buildings and other believable urban scenes. I also find it to be a good way to desensitize that fear that comes with ink, because all the mistakes are so permanent. I made a few mistakes here as well, but I don't think they bother me as much as before. I've done it so many times, I even start to think that these very hand-drawn qualities look really charming. By the way, I actually have other ways to keep on practicing with these shapes. For example, I have drawn them on watercolor paper and painted them with a brush. But I think that's gonna be on the part 2 of this video. It's gonna focus more on painting and digital techniques. I will touch on subjects like shape design, edge control, values, and colors. So stay tuned for that. The next thing we're gonna do is to draw a piece of creased paper. This is to train our ability to put a 3D object onto a 2D surface. We can start by position this plane so we only see one side of it. It's always easier. For the second one, I'm going to try an angle which I can see both the front and back of the paper. Again, this involves imagining something we can see directly, so I have to use my observational skill and combine some perspective theory, imagination, and just common sense. And I have to say it's really challenging. This is not something like biking or swimming. Once you learned it, you always know how to do it. To me, this feels more like playing an instrument. Like when you get rusty, it can get really tricky. Paper roll is an alternative way to practice this. It's a lot softer and it got this curvy thing happening where it folds on itself. I find it a lot harder because it's so organic. I haven't got the hang of this yet, but I can imagine this is a great exercise for people who draw a lot of outfits and fabric. The next exercise is stacking cards behind other cards. I guess you can see the patterns here. Overlapping is a big obstacle for beginners. I don't know why it's rarely mentioned. I don't know if people who started drawing as a child just naturally acquired this skill along the way, or is it just me who find it so difficult? Anyway, this kind of exercise is always very engaging to me. It's not a relaxing experience. It's always like mildly frustrating, but I guess that's a good sign. That means my brain is burning. That's a sensation of figuring out something new. Now I'm going to show you one of my favorite learning tools. It's called the Infinite Cube Fidget Toy. I bought it from a gadget store a few years ago and I sprayed it with gray hobby paint so the colors are not distracting. You can move it around and find a lot of interesting angles. I probably have drawn more than 100 of these throughout the years, and there are so much to learn from this thing. Perspective and volume are the first thing that comes to my mind. I also learned about light and shadow with this tool. If I put it on a piece of white paper and use a single light source, I can see how it casts the shadow on the paper and on itself. I will talk more about that in a second video because it's more related to value and edges. Today we're just gonna focus on drawing and perspective. As mentioned before, I have taken a few pictures of these on the Pinterest board. You can post your drawing there in the comment. I would love to see that. If you don't want to purchase gadgets like this, empty boxes of any shape and size would be great as well, especially those with a lid or these folding flaps. I don't know what to call them. Drawing these things on different angles is really beneficial, and if you think this is too easy for you, let's move on to the next exercise. Now we are officially in the hard mode. We're going to draw a lineup of domino tiles. This is from a picture on Pinterest. I don't own a set of dominoes, but you can find a lot of reference pictures or videos of them. This exercise requires some previous skills we practiced, like volume, perspective, and overlapping. If you actually followed all the previous exercises, first of all, I am very impressed. Great job. Let me know how you feel. I would love to know that. I just want to quickly say that if you're feeling brain fatigue, your results might compromise and things will get better after some food and sleep. So do take breaks, take a nap, or come back tomorrow. Your drawing will get better. If practicing is like acquiring the skill, then eating and sleeping is just like sealing the knowledge in your brain. It's just as important. Okay, now we're moving on to ellipses. I have to admit that I don't fully understand the theory, but I know that drawing the line like a British flag inside this rectangle shape will tell you where the center of the shape is. If you have trouble finding the center line in perspective, I like to use my fingers to pretend to pinch these lines as if they're made of rubber bands, and then I will be able to have an idea of where the vanishing point is. And connecting the vanishing point to the center will usually do the trick. I know this is not 100% accurate, obviously, but when I'm drawing freehand, I don't want to rely on measuring tools, so I want to train my eyes as much as possible. Now I'm drawing a bunch of floating planes that are connected, and then drawing the circles on each one of them. This is a great exercise if you want to draw more imaginary things like machineries or creatures. And this leads us to our last exercise, which is understanding contour lines. I know that a lot of professional artists like to use contour lines, contour hatching to convey volume and movement. And as a beginner, I just couldn't understand for the longest time, like how do they see it? How do they know where these lines are? And what direction should I place these lines? This confused me for like a year and a half, and one day I suddenly realized that a slinky is basically made of contour lines. So I immediately went to the store to get one and started drawing them from different angles. It was eye-opening. I was never able to understand the concept of it until I had it in my hand and manipulate it into different shapes and really take a look at it. I also realized that the contour lines can change when I move my head around. It's just something I never thought about. Another thing that is really great about the slinkies is that they are very easy to do this pinch and stretch thing. If you want to learn gesture drawing and animation, the pinch and stretch is really crucial to make your characters look alive. I don't know if you have seen this video, it's a slinky on a treadmill. It has such a bouncy, swanky attitude, it makes me laugh every time I look at it. It just goes to say that a slinky has the potential to help you create character drawings that seemingly coming off the page. And there are just infinite ways to twist and turn it to practice foreshortening and contour drawings. Alright, I hope this video is a good workout for your drawing brain and helps you to hone your drawing skills. Do let me know what you think about them, if you find them to be difficult or easy, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.